Distant, muffled sounds surrounded him. Eyes closed. Tiny sparks of light flashed around the edges in the darkness. Everything was far away, detached. Finn focused on the voices. He knew they belonged to his friends, but he couldn't make out what they were saying. The ground pressed hard against his back. His right hand rested on the grass, the cool blades soft against his fingers, the smell of damp earth. He strained to open his eyes. His eyelids were lead blankets, refusing to cooperate. His head hurt like hell. Slowly, he realized he was coming out of another seizure. Oh, how he despised these things. The pathetic weakness, the lack of control over his own body. At last, able to open his eyes, he reached up to touch his head. Teague caught his hand and gently forced it back down along his side. Smiling, he leaned over and looked him in the eyes.
"Ah, I see you decided to join us again."
Teague's face came into focus. The silver ring on his left eyebrow, his pale blue eyes.
"Another one?"
It was a rhetorical question. Teague nodded.
"How long was this one?"
"Not long," replied Teague.
"How are you feeling?"
"Weak, foggy, pathetic."
"How long was I out of it?"
"A couple minutes."
"This one hit as soon as you put your head down. Thank God it waited till you were laying down, because we were all too tired to carry you."
Teague grinned.
"We've been waiting for you."
He slid the bandana aside to peek at the wound. Finn flinched at the painful tug as the cloth pulled loose from the sticky, coagulated blood.
"That needs some stitches,"
said Teague. Finn nodded.
"Can you sit up? You can take a few hits from that joint."
Teague motioned toward Cash, who sat across from them watching the exchange. He exhaled a cloud of smoke.
"Hopefully it'll numb some of the pain."
Finn sat up. His body trembled. He tried to run his fingers through his hair, but there was too much dried, crusted blood. They got stuck partway through. Disgusted, he wiped his hand off on his thigh. With shaking hands, he took a large hit from the joint. The trembling stopped. Instant calm washed over him. Beside him, Teague rummaged around in his pack. He pulled out a shirt, sniffed it, and recoiled.
"Well, it ain't clean, but it's gonna have to do."
He laid it flat on the ground and pulled out his sewing kit along with a small bottle of hand sanitizer. After placing them on the shirt, he turned to the others.
"Anyone got any dental floss? Not mint. Oh, and bandages. Gauze. This is a big one."
As the others gathered what items they had, Finn pulled out the flask filled with the leftover moonshine from the storm shelter. He took a swig, then placed it down on the t-shirt with the rest of the items. Teague looked at him and asked,
"Are you ready?" "About as ready as I can be,"
replied Finn, forcing a wry smile.
"Tete de Kebli,"
said Teague, as he tapped his head.
"I suppose that's a good thing in this case."
Finn sighed and gave a quick nod.
"Okay, let's do this."
Teague rubbed hand sanitizer on his hands.
"Put your head back. We gotta clean it first."
Finn scooted back and leaned sideways, tilting his head. Using the bottle of water, Teague flushed out the wound. He moved the hair aside and poked around, taking care to remove all of the bits of debris. Finn swore he could feel each hair follicle as it moved. The world spun, creating an odd sensation of detachment. A stinging splash of cool liquid brought him back to earth. "Jesus!" exclaimed Finn, flinching and trying hard not to pull away. His eyes watered.
I know. Moonshine stings a little,"
Teague said calmly.
"Hang in there."
Finn relaxed. Teague used the lighter to sterilize the needle. As he watched, Finn couldn't help but chuckle over the care he was taking. Why bother? There was enough dirt encrusted deep inside the crevices and lines of Teague's fingers to contaminate the needle all over again. He took another swallow of the moonshine, then settled back. Turning his head to the side, he closed his eyes and waited for the inevitable. Finn did his best to ignore the pain, but he could feel every torturous stitch. First came the sharp stab as the needle forced its way through both sides of the wound. Then came the weird, skin-crawling sensation as the thread moved through his flesh. Eyes watering, he went between bouts of sharp pain and pure revulsion.
"Relax. If you struggle, it's only gonna hurt more,"
Teague whispered. A faint smile crept across Finn's face as the words echoed in his mind. His thoughts trailed back 4 years ago, to the night they first met.